So if someone wanted to put one part of this in production, you're only looking at a couple of years. But our focus at the moment is not to put it into production, is show the extent. And that's really why we're getting so much attention, is because of where we are. If they look at it, we're looking at 3 individual prospects, which are over 90 kilometres, each is 40 kilometres apart. And we've only gone to the obvious. I mean, you have a look at this and you've got 3 exposed, what individually can be very large copper deposits. You sort of look back and go, there's got to be a lot more.
My next guest is Brett Matich. He's the CEO of Max Resource Corp. Trades on the TSX Venture under the symbol MAX, and in the United States under the symbol MXROF. Brett, welcome.
Thank you. How you doing, James?
It's been a while since we've chatted. I think it's been about 10 years. But Brett, you've got yourself a very interesting copper project in Colombia. Can you tell us about that, please?
So we've been in Colombia for about 2 years. We're in an area in northeast Colombia. It's a prolific oil and gas area. It's got the largest coal mine open pit in South America. So there's been a lot of copper in that area. So we started focusing on it, and it's what we see as one of the largest unexploited copper systems in the world. So at this stage, we've basically just been doing channel sampling on all the outcrops, and there's a prolific amount of outcrops. We haven't done silt sampling, stream sampling, because there's so much outcropping. And now we sort of got the concessions approved, and we're heading into the drilling stage. And the drilling stage, one of the areas we're concentrating on, it's got 300 metres of mineralisation in the topography, so we can access a lot of the mineralisation through adits. So we basically skipped a step. Where normally you got to go and do all this work to identify where the mineralisation is. We skipped the step. So we see our drilling side being extremely accurate. We're doing one step before drilling is we're doing what we call IP, and IP, copper's conductive. So IP, with the high grades we've got, it is basically going to light up like a Christmas tree. That'll give us the 3-dimension prior to drilling.
This is a very unique type of deposit too, characterized by extremely high grades. And there's other deposits of this type in the world, but only a very few. Can you tell us about the specific kind of deposit this is?
So this is what you call a sedimentary copper deposit. 2 areas in the world. One is in Poland, which they have what you call the Schiefer, which is the largest silver producer in the world as a byproduct, with number 6 copper. And then you've got the African belt, and people know a lot about Ivanhoe mines. So in the African belt, it's what you call chalcopyrite sulfide, and where the high grade is called chalcocite. The difference of where we are, the whole system is chalcocite, and that's why we're getting the high grades. And chalcocite, why is it high grade, is that it's 80% by weight copper, whereas chalcopyrite is 40% copper by weight. So that's the big difference. We've had a number of high-level experts that have been down this system just to sort of get third-party opinions, and they're the same. And what we're finding is even more intriguing. Up towards the north, we have like a Schiefer style, which is, it's a bit like the oxide or the top side of the mineralization. And then as we go down south to what we call Uru, where we're first drilling, we're straight into the fresh oxide rock. So that's where we're heading, because to the south we see a lot of volume. And the whole idea of what we're doing is we're advancing the basin. This is a basin play. So we're 100 kilometers of strike. We're demonstrating that this mineralized basin is pregnant all the way through the system. So we're not putting a resource together. What we do is we go what we call IP, then we drill holes widely apart, basically ground truthing the grade, and then we go IP again. So that's the system. We've had a lot of interest because the last news release on a small portion of our ground, we actually did dimensions so people can sort of work out what could be there. So we announced that the topography would trace mineralization up 310 meters, on strike 300 meters, which is open, and we saw thicknesses. We had 18 meters at 8% copper and 5 ounces to the ton silver, and that's true thickness. It's unheard of nowadays. So we sort of look at those thicknesses and you see the type of grades. If this was anywhere in the world, it would be mined. The reason it has not been mined because of the background of Colombia and the peace treaties that only came through in the last 5 or 6 years. The other reason is it was hard to get a ground position. So strategy is expanding ground position, and that's why we brought in Endeavour Silver. So Endeavour Silver, with their partnership, we use their balance sheet, which gives us more capabilities of expanding ground, and Endeavour get a 0.5% NSR. We still hold all the ground 100%, and that's really important. And Endeavour have a 5% holding in the company, which is escrow for 2 years, and they're giving the voting rights to the management.
There are no deposits anywhere in development that I know of with such grades, and especially with such widths. And so I would think that this would be, given the copper price and the sort of implied shortage of copper in the future as a result of lack of investment in new supply, that this would sort of have the chance to be fast-tracked. In a best-case scenario, Brett, what would be the minimum timeline until this thing could be put into production?
It could get put in production quite quickly because, one, you got the mineralization and topography, and also being chalcocite, the processing side is very simple, and you have a high concentrate. So if someone wanted to put one part of this in production, you're only looking at a couple of years. But our focus at the moment is not to put it into production, is show the extent. And that's really why we're getting so much attention, is because of where we are. If they look at it, we're looking at 3 individual prospects, which are over 90 kilometres, each is 40 kilometres apart. And we've only gone to the obvious. I mean, you have a look at this, and you've got 3 exposed, what individually can be very large copper deposits. You sort of look back and you go, there's got to be a lot more.
So this being in northeastern Colombia, I've been to Colombia a few times, and that strikes me as a very sort of tough to access area. And so you were saying that it's only been possible to explore this area as a result of recent treaties. Is that with the FARC?
Yes. So recent treaties, some 5 to 10 years ago, yes. And since then, what they've done is you have a lot of army presence now, especially along the Venezuelan border. And it sounds funny, but in Colombia, where you have army presence, the bad guys keep away. They're always going to go for the easy targets. And in relation to infrastructure, because of the oil and gas, the infrastructure is unbelievable. You've got multiple shipping ports, railway lines, access on roads. And being in a basin, got to remember, we're up at the Caribbean Ocean. So a basin is more like Australia, not like your typical steep topography, rainforest, all those elements. We haven't got there. So it's how would you say, it's really the perfect place in relation to exploration. And on top of that, it's got one of the largest open pits in the world. So the community are used to open pit mining. The community depend on it. We have got a great relationship with the community. Every single one of our field crew are all Colombian. We have some 40 young Colombians at a university. So we're not just employing the Colombians, we're also teaching them skills. So it's very important. It's not just about mining, it's about location in relation to security and safety, and it's also about being involved in the community. The other point where we are at the moment is thermal coal. A lot of these majors are moving out of thermal coal and going towards clean energy and moving into copper mining. So here, thermal coal, they're very dependent on it. BHP Billiton have left, Anglo American have left. So the community is looking for another revenue source, and the Colombian government is really pushing copper. So it's sort of, for us, it's also timing. Sometimes you can be in the right place at the right time.
In terms of the relationship with the Colombian government, how does the sort of the mining investment split work if the mine goes into production?
It's fairly typical. We have your normal royalties, which are around the 5% mark. Most of it's crown land. There's no forests or tropical forests. The government have got incentives because they're trying to create investment into Colombia itself. Funny enough, Colombia's had the longest democracy than any other country in South America. They've never ever repatriated a mineral or mining claim. So you have a look at the background of the country. It's got very close ties with the US. So you see, sort of people don't realize the diplomatic strength that Colombia has actually got. But it's just, it was really, the turning point was the agreement or the treaties with like the FARC and the ELN that really opened up Colombia. Why did we go to Colombia? It is on the largest producing belt in the world, copper belt, the Andean belt. It's the only part of that belt that has not been exploited. You know, you got one of the largest gold resources in the world there, copper, but you've got to be in the right area, and this is the area where you can mine, and that's how we are. We're a small company. Junior companies, we can't for us to go and explore on areas you cannot mine, you know, we're going to be dead in the water. We've got to go to areas where you can mine. We've got to go to areas where you can utilize your expenditure. We're not like a porphyry deposit. A porphyry deposit, you've got to drill holes 500 meters, 600 meters, close spacing. Where we are, our average depth is 200 meters, but wide spacing. So basically, we can cover 10 times the amount of ground under the same budget of what you would on a porphyry. So we've got quite a number of advantages there. And we see, for what we've done in the short time of 2 years, I think now we're coming to the clinch time. You know, with junior companies, where you get the biggest response is drilling. And we're coming into our first drilling campaign, and that's where you get the big difference in the share price. So we're very excited. We're cashed up. We got $7 million in the bank. You know, our drilling side is continuous because we have that Caribbean type of climate, so we don't have a wet season. We have all our field crew there are local, so we're quite different for a lot of the junior companies, especially in places like Canada, where you have that. You know, you have the wet season and the dry season.
Yeah, you bet. Brett, we're going to leave it there for now. That sounds fascinating. We're going to follow this story very closely because copper is obviously thematic in the battery metals universe. So thank you very much for your time today.
Pleasure. Anytime, James.
You bet. Bye for now.